All right. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Boom. Camera one. Hello, everyone. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. It has been a while. Hopefully the audio sounds okay. If it's not, let me know. I can see chat. Hey, Ben. How's it going? Good to see you. Long time. Been a while. Haven't streamed in a while. Yeah. So I'm back? Question mark. It's been a little bit. Been doing a whole bunch of stuff, obviously with pandemic somewhat winding down, at least here in the States and at least in Massachusetts, where the vast majority of people are vaccinated, including myself. Actually going out and enjoying life has been a lot of fun. But I still like doing fun modular stuff. So been having fun doing that. As a kind of whim, I signed up to play live in person with people, which should be really entertaining. I will be performing live at the Modular on the Spot Boston, which is taking place in Somerville, and that'll be about 2 weeks from now. It'll be Sunday the 1st, so that'll be fun and scary. The only time I've ever performed live, period, was for the Div Kid Takes Over the Earth Modular Society stream, which went really well. But obviously, that was a very, very different experience because it was a live stream versus a actual performance in public in person. So let's talk about how we're going to do that. And I do see a question about this module. Let me switch back to the right camera view. About this lovely thing right here. This is my current, and we'll see how long it stays that way. This is my little live case that I put together. I don't know if everything in the case will stay in the case, though I'm having a lot of fun with it. But basically, what we have is kind of the sequencing / effects row. There's some effects over here, some sequencing kind of control hint stuff over here. Then we got the voices in the top with my kind of mixer output area over here. So what we're looking at here, this is the Emblematic Systems Catalyst Flow. And essentially what it is if you took the scene section and the crossfader from the Octatrack, took all of that out, made it one kind of tiny little module, and have it manipulate control voltage instead of the kind of modulation it does with the Octatrack. But it's essentially the same idea. It functions basically the same. Yeah, and I think this is I've had this for 4 or 5 months now, but it's been in the big case, which is off on the corner here. And I don't think it works nearly as well in a large case as it does in a small case. In a small case where you basically, you have a limited set of stuff you can do, period, with CV. So by having one kind of main modulator and having it be very kind of hands-on, doing these kind of macro control type stuff across the board has been really cool. Versus a large case, in a large case, I don't think it works nearly as well because there's just too much to do, and one small module that has 8 outputs, even with multiplying and stuff like that, and doing any sort of modulation crossover stuff, I think it's a bit difficult. But in here, I think it's perfect, and I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm still tweaking stuff, but yeah. So let's talk about what else is in the case. So, pardon the cable mess. This is the problem with trying to make a very small modular live system, is that there are just a lot of cables. So I have this kind of cable bridge that is currently being held together by a nice piece of gaff tape in order to keep everything somewhat out of the way. Going from left to right, we have the Modbat Performer. Under the nest here, there is a Pittsburgh Modular Lifeforms analog delay unit. We have the qubit data bender. The NerdSeq is doing all of the heavy lifting. We have the MIDI, the TRS MIDI output for the NerdSeq, and then the catalyst, which I talked about already. Up at the top, we have a miniature braids clone from CalSynths, also a mini rings clone, also from CalSynths. The BIA, of course. Manacitaritas. Bitbox Micro is on drums. Carbon, just as a nice filter. And then the Desmodus Versio as the Desmodus Versio. So the bat verb is the main reverb for the case. And then we have the Cosmix acting as the main mixer. So finally up at the top, we have Quadrat, 2 sloths. So these are the nonlinear circuit sloths. They're tuned slightly differently. So this one I think is faster than this one. The idea being basically we get some random extra modulation in, doing its thing, just making things more interesting without having to think about it, which is nice. And then this is the output section. These are just the IntelliGel output modules. So we have, actually this one's an intake, but we're not using it. Headphone out, regular out, and then the out is going out to the mixer. So let's hear individual things, I guess, at the moment. This is all subject to change. I don't know what I'm doing, but this is what I've been working on. So the cool thing, this is drums. So drums at the moment is going from the MIDI out on the NerdSeq to the Bitbox Micro. So which is really cool because I have one cable and I don't have to have the trigger expander or anything for the NerdSeq. Sorry for the wiggle. But I don't have to have the trigger expander for the NerdSeq. It's going straight into the MIDI in on the Bitbox Micro, doing all of the fun stuff over MIDI with the NerdSeq. Has been really great. I really, really like it. It's very convenient to have just one cable that does everything. The audio out is going first into, if I remember right, yes, first into the Ritual Electronics Guillotine, which is spicy. So that's the guillotine, which is a whole, it's a blast. Basically, the name of the game with drums is make it as distorted and messed up as totally possible. So the guillotine adds to that. If it was just the guillotine without the modbap, we'd be in trouble or I'd have to be constantly riding the fader on it in order to keep everything in line. But the performer, which is where it goes, actually take that back. Before it goes to the performer, it goes into the data bender. We'll come back to the data bender in a second. But the performer is doing a lot of work. Key point is that it is doing compression. So without the compression, bear with me. Let's see what it sounds like. Boom, boom, boom. This might be a bit loud, so I'm going to turn it down and then we'll bring it back in. So yeah, so having that on having the drums on a compressor after the guillotine is a big thing. Otherwise, I think it would be a bit too much. At least harder to control. It would sound awesome, but you'd have to be constantly riding the fader in order to keep everything together. So obviously the performer is doing its own sort of effects with these nice. You hear the tape stop effect. With these nice arcade buttons. So if you look at from a kind of controls layout perspective, which is what I was really thinking of when I was putting this together, where my hands want to be are like right here at the edge of the case, almost like it's a giant Game Boy. So I have my, slider stuff over here with the catalyst, and then I got my button press stuff over here with the performer, which is really great. And then in my hands in the middle to actually, manipulate sequences and stuff like that. And then finally on the drum bus, we have the data bender. Again, more grit, more stuff. I actually have the controls on the mix and time on the data bender coming from the catalyst over here on these two channels. So I can tweak things. One of the things I need to work on in general in preparation for this set is what the kind of scenes are going to be over here on the catalyst. So even with nothing in it, it still gets crazy, which is not true. There's a little bit of noise coming from the Bitbox Micro, but I kind of don't care. For a small setup like this, it really doesn't matter. And noise is fun anyway. So that's drums. Let's play bass. Which just sounds nice and fat. And that is literally just the BIA. There's nothing really more to it. It is on a bit of a send to the reverb. So you can hear a little bit of difference with that, but anyway, it's just a nice fat BIA sound, and there's two modulations going into that at the moment. One is coming from the NerdSeq, and that is going to, I don't even remember at this point. Morph, maybe? Morph. I think it's Morph. Yeah, it's Morph, because then the slider is controlling the decay time. I might change that, we'll see. But at the moment, it sounds pretty cool, and it gives me some flexibility here. I might change it to do the morph on the catalyst and do the decay on the NerdSeq. But we'll see, working spread knob on the BI can be a build. Yeah, potentially. I have to find it and memorize it, but yes. So that's definitely a big part of the next 2 weeks is A, building a set, B, learning how to play it. And work the, I think Mylar Melodies has a really cool video where he literally has a heat map overlay of things to touch and things not to touch. Don't know what those are yet on this. I know things to touch in this row, but the upper row is still a little interesting. I don't have answers there yet. So that's the BIA. On the lead-ish is that super saw, works better with reverb. So that is the braids too, in the super saw mode, and really there's not a whole lot going on here. The only modulation on this at the moment, the only modulation on this at the moment is the timbre, which is basically in this specific algorithm, it is adjusting the detuning of the oscillators for the supersaw. So sounds good. It is using its own internal VCA and envelope, just because in order to get a kind of full system here, it's a bit difficult to squeeze in extra VCAs. So I'm committing a modular sin, and I have no VCAs in my case. I'm sure I'll be hauled up and tarred and feathered for saying that, but it's working. Hey, full voice modules are pretty cool. So that's that one. Let's see how loud this is. This is the Manus. Which can get mean and nasty. Because it's the Manus. Sorry. Oh, there's rings going. So the Manus is, again, self-enveloping. It is going into the carbon before it goes into the mixer. The idea being I can kind of add or remove that extra grit from the Manus, and the FM control on the carbon is on the catalyst as well. So I'll talk about how I kind of have the controls laid out down here as soon as my thing stops shaking. But finally, we got rings Always pretty. A little bit loud. It's a little fun. So, the modulation on that, I believe, is going to the dampening. It's interesting because as it slides over, it drops quite a bit. Yes, I'm on probation for no VCAs. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Forgive me, Mod Father, for I have sinned. Anyway. So Manus is, rings, nice pretty tones. It gets a kind of alternate lead voice. I can use it as a pad depending on how I'm building the track, which I haven't decided yet, but we'll see. It's in here, it fits. Let's talk about how mixing is working, because this is really cool. I've been having fun with this. So I got the Cosmix a couple weeks ago, and it's freaking perfect. It is the exact thing for this system. The main plan when I got it was to use it as a drum mixer for the Super Duper rig, which I still might. But at the moment, it is serving a great job as the main mixer here. It has a nice little aux send, which is going out to the Versio. So reverb send, basically. I have down here, basically, the aux send controls. They're a little bit small and they're hard to get to, so they're probably going to basically be set, but that's fine. Pan control, you have pre-post fade for the send, which is cool. You have this nice drive, which I'm actually not using at the moment because there's enough drive on other stuff here that adding more drive is not necessary, but it's there. Mute controls, level controls, sounds great, fits the box, doesn't do anything extra, does exactly what I need. Great. But yeah, the cool thing with the send, right, is like you have this kind of like little patch of blue cables down here. This is just the reverb going back and forth from the send into the input. The two stereo inputs are nice. So I have the drums coming in as stereo from the performer. And because the stereo buses are not on the aux send, the drums, which is, in this case is a good thing, the drums will never go into the reverb, which I don't want anyway. I want the drums to be clean. So it's nice. It's, it's got two stereo ins, 4 regular mono ins with pan. Can't ask for more there. Catalyst. Let's talk about what we got set up notionally. So this is all subject to change. I don't know if I'm going to keep the delay in here. I don't think it's really buying me anything at the moment. Currently rings is going into the delay before it goes out to the mix, which is okay. It's, I don't know. I'm not super crazy about it. It doesn't do anything bad, but it's not, 6 HP is very tight in this case, so there's other stuff that could go there. I'm not sure what yet, but something. So that might not stick around, but let's see. So, Catalyst. So these first 4, so the way I've laid everything out, on the NerdSeq, 1, 2, 3, 4, on the Cosmix, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the Catalyst, 1, 2, 3, 4, correspond to the BIA on bass, braids with that lead voice, the Manus, and then rings. So by keeping everything in lockstep, it means that whatever parameter I'm controlling, basically one for each here, is going to the respective voice, stays with the mixer, 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of muting, stays with the tracks on NerdSeq, so everything's aligned. It's very, very clean in terms of doing the layout. The other 4 are going, 2 are going to the data bender, and then 2 are going to this Versio. On the data bender, it's the mix and time, so I can bring it in and bring it out as I want. On the Versio, it's the size and density. So basically making the reverb super big or super not big, depending on how I'm feeling. And that's it in terms of what the patch is at the moment. Yeah, fun stuff. So let's go crazy and just do something from scratch. Not totally from scratch, but I do have a template. So these are the same drums as before, should be. So let's do this. Let's go down 135, 130, 38. We're just going to delete this stuff. Don't need it. Yeah, let's do that. Let's get some techno going. Oops. If you ever want to learn a module, put it in your live case and then give yourself a live show that you have to make stuff work with it. Because it's a great forcing function. Yeah, there we go. Say hello to the worst techno beat. not be composing live as part of the performance. This is just me messing around. have messed with the crossfader physics settings. That stuff is really cool. So in terms of that, like basically what you can do is you can change the kind of transition times, and there's also kind of like a bounce back that it does. So it'll basically smooth over any sort of like interpolation that it does when you're performing with it, which is really cool. And then the other one, is it basically like interjects a little LFO onto it too, which is cool. So those are both things that the Octatrack cannot do. And the other thing that this does, which is really sweet, is you can record your fader movement. And now it's an LFO, right? It's just doing it, and I don't have to touch it, which is awesome. If I just hit the record, it stops it. I have not put the performer on the master bus yet. I might try that still. Anyway, that was fun. Rings is going to keep ringing. So a couple comments. MV Dirty, welcome. Thanks for checking it out. Much appreciated your assistance with the NerdSeq the other day. The rings is staying. The question is whether the lifeforms delay, which is what it's going into right now, sticks around. Because it sounds nice. Yeah, the mix is definitely Yes, agreed. Um, it's interesting. So the problem, the nice thing about the noise engineering modules is that they are these nice full voices that do a lot. But especially the Manus, less so the BIA, at least the way I'm using it at the moment, um, they just fill up a lot of the spectrum. Manus in general, because it's like literally playing like white noise over everything in a way. Um, Trying to tame it without having like a proper mixer with EQs across the board is a little difficult. So that is one of the downsides of the way everything is set up at the moment. That's kind of why it's going into the Carbon, is to attempt to control that at least a little bit. And also, like, when you start distorting the drums and stuff like that, you're adding a whole bunch of extra in harmonics, actual harmonics, stuff like that. You're filling out your spectrum pretty quickly. So that's definitely something I have to be keenly aware of. But I think there's room here. Definitely room to play. So cool. Let's see. Any other questions, comments, concerns from the audience? Thank you guys for tuning in. Much appreciated, by the way. Yeah, this is kind of fun. I mean, it's fun just to like jam on. Like the nice thing about having a pretty static patch like this, at least at the moment, is that I basically just have like a little template on here that has everything I needed in terms of the track setup on the NerdSeq and everything. So I can kind of just start fresh and jam out and see what I like and see what I don't like. And I'm not sure where I'm going yet, but the journey is fun, which is always a good thing. So, the one thing I did, so track layout, I think I talked about it. So up at the top is like an all stop, but it still keeps the clock going, so which is handy. So the clock will still keep going even if I do the. So that's useful for performance if you want to kind of like drop out everything, but you still need clock going for whatever reasons. The other thing I did was all the way at the bottom. Sorry. I'll play it, but you're not going to like it. This is my little tuning track. Which is the whole purpose of it is just so I can make sure that my oscillators are in tune. So it's buried there at the bottom, and I can basically use the mutes to switch stuff in and out to confirm that everything is lined up. But it's nice just to have that baked into the template so I don't have to think about it. I do have, where are you? Buried in a nest of cables. I got a little guitar tuner. Whoops. So I can actually plug this into the headphone out here and tune specifically if I wanted to, if I really cared. The nice thing, and one of the reasons why I chose digital oscillators, is that they don't lose tuning nearly as easy. As long as you don't bump the pitch knobs, for the most part, they're stable. And they're stable over power changes and all of the other fun stuff. I don't have to think about it. The one exception to that seems to be rings. Rings, for whatever reason, might come back as like a semitone off, which is a little bit irritating, but we'll have to see how that goes. So far, it's been fine, but rings is difficult to tune in general. But anyway, cool. Well, I got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to jam on this a little bit more, and then I'm going to call it an evening. So thank you guys all for checking out, tuning in, switching on. More deeper stuff to come with this because I'm running out of time. So, but aren't we all really? Death gets us all in the end. So on that happy note, let's play some music. Hey, you want to send me one? Oh, you missed the guillotine fun sounds. There's my reverb. I forgot about the reverb. I was wondering why I wasn't doing anything. There we go. That's that lush sound I wanted. Cool. Well, that was fun. Yeah. So, let's see. Rewinding the comments a bit. Yeah, muscle on the master bus. Yeah, you want to send me one? I don't have one. So far I haven't bought. Well, that's not really true, but I haven't bought anything specific for this case yet. But it's kind of a lie. The sloths and all the 1U stuff was, and the Bitbox Micro was as well. But yeah, I don't currently own a muscle, which is on the list. Let's see. What happens when we crank up the guillotine? I think we demonstrated that very well. So right now, because the compressor is on in the performer and all of the drum stuff is going into the performer, it's actually the performer is doing a great job of taming it. So speaking of compression. Without that, the guillotine gets pretty crazy. And I don't know if you're here when I mentioned this, but you really have to because it adds so much drive to it. You basically have to ride the fader as you crank it up in order to combat the additional volume. But putting it in the performer actually does a good job of keeping everything in check while still giving the nice distorted sound that it adds to it, which is great. Boom, 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 boom. Original beat was hella neuro. I'm assuming that means neurotic, which is probably very true. Yeah, envelopes, VCA ducking definitely, to be able to cut out pieces of the mix where appropriate. Again, part of the problem with such a small case, and there's probably ways to solve it, but stuff would obviously have to get cut. In order to do any sort of ducking like that, like sidechain ducking with a VCA, you'd have to be getting really creative with mix busing, which given the size of the case is a bit difficult to do. I'd have to think about that in terms of how to actually route stuff to be able to duck anything that I was sidechaining in. So for example, putting a compressor on the master bus out is fine, but you can't really duck it because then it's ducking the drums that you're trying to go through, right? In terms of like getting drum hits and stuff like that. So I have to think about that one. It's definitely possible, but I don't know that I have. I'd have to cut something pretty big in order to do that, potentially. Let's see. Still has tracks on outputs to spare on the NerdSeq. So some envelopes could definitely come. Yes, 100%. So I still have 2 tracks on the NerdSeq, which I'm not using at the moment. And the NerdSec's built-in envelopes are perfectly fine. I thought I was reading somewhere that the resolution on the NerdSec envelopes wasn't that great, but at least the ones on here seem fine. Like I was actually watching them with an oscilloscope, didn't see any issues. So yeah, seems okay. So yeah, definitely more modulation outs available to me as needed for any sort of ducking like that. Kick drum ducks everything else. Yeah, but the problem with that is that unless it does it like multiband compression where it still lets the kick through, maybe it does. Maybe I just don't know enough about the muscle, but it would be ducking the whole master bus, unless I'm totally misunderstanding what you're saying. But feel free to ping me and explain it to me because I'm a dummy. Right. Yeah. So, and that's a good question. I have not fully explored the full capabilities of the bitbox. It's possible that the bitbox itself has some sort of side chaining ability. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to play with it. The other part is just like being aware of the mix and from both a mix perspective, but also I think Brett had a comment in there as well about the composition perspective as well, right? Like certain elements should not go together. Manus in particular kind of needs to be alone, at least at the moment, in order for it to actually come through and not have, completely drown out everything else. But I have to work on it. So cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and checking out and saying hi. Much appreciated. We'll be back probably, I don't know, Wednesday maybe. More streaming, more practice, more. Yeah, cool. Peace. See you guys.